What is going on? How you guys doing? I am back with another edition of Joe's Crime Stories. That's right. And you know how I usually do. I'm going to give you a crime story, whether it's about the latest news or a documentary on my point of view of a famous crime or an actual famous serial killer or case. Now, if it's your first time tuning in to me, please do me a favor. Go ahead on, hit the like button. Also hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell all the way up to the top of YouTube. If you're on my other platforms, just go ahead on and follow me. Uh, Go ahead and make sure that you follow me. So every time I am here, you can definitely see when I am available or got some new material. Now, one thing about this actual channel that's different than any other channel you'll ever deal with is that all the things that I do is live. It is unscripted, it is authentic, it is straight from what they call a freestyle documentary perspective. So a lot of people are pretty impressed by our channel because usually I use my years of intellect and attention to detail based upon my prior military experiences to be able to photographically memory give you the stories that you love and need to hear or information that you probably never knew existed out there. Now, with that being said, if you can as well to share this broadcast if you like it, so other people are aware of it, and if you can also to try to do me a real good solid and donate to the cause. We're trying to continue this channel, give you these type of crime stories, so you guys are constantly engaged and aware of what is going on. Now, I know people have asked me why I haven't done a documentary in so long. I have been dealing with COVID-19. By the grace of God, now I'm almost in the clear. I have a couple of more days to take another test to see if I am negative and I can go back to business as usual. So without further ado, we are going to get into the Richard Ramirez story, also known as the Night Stalker. Now, if you haven't heard of this guy, there's been plenty of movies about him. There has been like a whole lot of renditions of documentaries, but I decided to do this documentary my way because y'all know that I try to give it to y'all authentic and different from an authentic journalistic perspective. So, without further ado, we're going to get comfortable here and we're going to jump into Richard Ramirez. Now, Richard Ramirez was born February 29th, 1960. He is known as an American serial killer, a serial rapist, kidnapper, pedophile, and burglar. Now, a lot of the stuff about his life and story is very sensitive to young audience. So if you got any children under the age of 18, under the age of 17, I would advise for you to tell them not to be around to hear the rest of this story before we continue on, because this is going to be very graphic and very detailed, because on this channel we are authentic. Now, his highly publicized home invasion crime spree terrorized the residents of the greater Los Angeles area and later the residents of the San Francisco Bay Area from June 1984 until August of 1985. And then prior to his capture, Ramirez had several nicknames. He was dubbed the Valley Intruder, as his attacks were first clustered in the San Gabriel Valley and the Night Stalker by the news media because of the timing of his attacks. Now, and then he also went by as the walk-in killer. Now, the status of this young man, he was a little over 6 feet, roughly 6'1", and he was charged with a lot of crimes. But we are going to go into what made this man go from being a serial, from a develop into one of the most prolific serial killers in the South California area in his present time. Now, Ramirez's real name, he was born, was Ricardo Lavalla Munoz Ramirez, but everybody affectionately in his family call him Richard. Now, Richard Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas on February 29th, 1960. He was the youngest of Julian and Mercedes Ramirez, 5 children. His father, Julian, was a Mexican national and former Ciudad Juarez policeman who later became a laborer on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. Now, his father was known to have fits of anger that resulted in physical abuse to anyone that was in his path. His father was reported that a lot of time, Richard Ramirez, when he was younger, would get the brute end of his father's anger because he was the one that was always mostly around his father. Now, also, his family also not only call him Richard, but also call him Richie. When he was 12 years old, was influenced by an older cousin named Miguel Mikey Ramirez. Now, Miguel was a Green Beret. He was a combat veteran, but he boasted about some of the gruesome things he did in Vietnam War. Now, he had Polaroid photos of victims, and including Vietnamese women, where he would just brutally violate and rape in some of the photos. Now, Mike posed with the severed head of a woman who had abused Richard, who had been, Mike posed with a severed head of a woman he had abused. Now, Richard, who had begun smoking marijuana at the age of 10, bonded with Mike over the years. Bonded with Mike over joints and gory war stories, and this went on for years. Excuse me. Mike taught his young cousin some of his military skills, such as killing with stealth. Around this time, Ramirez began to seek escape from his father's violent temper by sleeping in a local cemetery. So, at an early age, Richard Ramirez had a lot of twisted influences. So, think about this. Think about having an abusive father who's a fit of rage, always screaming at you, always taking it out on you. And imagine having that cousin that's a male influence in your life that you look up to, who talks about hurting and violating women, and not to mention, too, teaching you how to kill, like preparing you for special forces for evil, not special forces for protection, but special forces for evil. Now, Richard was present on May 4th, 1973, when his cousin Mike fatally shot his wife Jessie in the face with a 38 caliber revolver during a domestic argument. After the shooting, Richard became sullen, withdrawn from his family and peers. Now, what was told to Richard told to a lot of people that when he saw this happen with his cousin killing his own wife, he took into the horrors and the scenes of it like it was like he felt like he was in another world, like he belonged, like he enjoyed that moment of seeing that blood and that gore, which is twisted. But this is what happens when a child so early in life is seeing that at all times. Now, later that year, Richard moved in with his older sister Ruth and her husband Roberto, who was later to be found out he was an obsessive peeping Tom. He took Richard Ramirez, aka Richie, along on his nocturnal exploits. Now, Ramirez also began using LSD and cultivating an interest in Satanism. Now, at this time, his brother-in-law was also teaching him how to be a professional peeping Tom, how not to get caught, how to be stealth. Now, he's already done learned all the type of moves and killing and what to do already from his cousin Mikey, who is currently now in jail. So now he went from one bad influence to another bad influence. Damn, man, this is crazy, ain't it? It's crazy. Like, guy ain't never had a chance. Now, Ramirez also began using LSD and cultivated an interest in Satanism. Mike was found not guilty of Jesse's murder by reason of insanity and was released in 1977 after 4 years of incarceration at the uh, Texas State Mental Hospital. His influence over Ramirez continued. Now, back in 1977, by that time, Ramirez was around about 17. So just to hear that his big cousin, who originally taught him the ropes about how to kill and glorified hurting others, is out free on a technicality of by insanity, was let go. You know, he was excited about that. And let me tell you, back then, being found uh, doing something by reason of insanity, if you already had did time for being, you know, doing time, or you already was in the process of already did some jail time, back then, a lot of times in the 70s, they would let you out free because in their mind, you did your time. You just got to get your therapy and take your meds and you'll be fine. It's different from today because today, if you found guilty of reason of insanity for killing somebody, you staying in there until the doctors deem that you are no longer a threat in society. And buddy, that's a long road now versus how it was back then. Now, the adolescent Ramirez began to meld his burgeoning sexual fantasies with violence, included forced bondage and rape. While still in school, he took a job at a local Holiday Inn where he used his pass keys to rob sleeping patrons. Now, during this time when he was working the Holiday Inn, he would also watch patrons as well. He would talk about how he would slip in, hide in closets, hide in different areas, and especially if there are women and their husbands were gone or their boyfriends were gone, he would just watch them till they fall asleep, rob and leave. So think about that. Think about you're at a Holiday Inn and this guy here is just politely watching you in a closet, watching you go to the bathroom, all your intimacies as a woman, That's scary. Sorry, that's mad scary. Now his employment ended abruptly after Ramirez one day decided to take those actions of watching women, especially women that were with their husbands and boyfriends, to a whole nother level. He took it to that whole nother level by he waited until the actual lady's husband, who was of the Texas area, went to go do an errand. While that guy went to go do an errand, he decided to get the nerve up to peer over this woman while she was in that bed, be in the room by herself, and was going to try to attempt to hurt this lady. And you know what that means, violator. Well, the husband came back in time, and when he seen that, it was not a good day for Richard Ramirez. He beat the brakes off Richard Ramirez. When I say the brakes, I mean he fucked him up. Let's put it that way. He fucked him up. Now, criminal charges was dropped when the couple who lived out of state declined to return to testify against him. Now, Ramirez dropped out of Jefferson High School in the ninth grade. Now, at the age of 22, he moved to California, where he settled permanently. So now we're going to get into how everything started. The first murder that Richard Ramirez decided to participate in happened on April the 10th, 1984. That's kind of scary because I was a couple of days old in that time period. Ramirez murdered a 9-year-old Chinese American, Mei Ling, in the basement of the hotel where he was living in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. He raped and beat this girl before stabbing her to death and hanging her body from a pipe. This was Ramirez's first known killing. He was not identified as being connected to the subsequent crime spree until 2009, when Ramirez's DNA was matched to a sample obtained at the crime scene. In 2016, officials disclosed evidence of a second suspect identified through a DNA sample revived from the scene, who was believed to have been present at Lang's murder. Authorities have not publicly identified the suspect, described as being a juvenile at the time, and have not brought charges due to lack of evidence. Now, there was some speculation that whoever this juvenile was, could have been somebody that Richard Ramirez might have been trying to mentor, but that's neither here or there. That was never proven. Then after that, his crimes went on to the next victim. On June 28, 1984, 79-year-old Jenny Vincal was found brutally murdered at her apartment in Glassell Park, Los Angeles. She had been stabbed repeatedly while sleeping in her bed, and her throat slashed so deeply that she was nearly decapitated. Ramirez's fingerprint was found on a mesh screen he moved to gain access through an open window. Now, on March 17th of 1985, Ramirez attacked a 22-year-old Maria Hernandez outside her home in Rosemead, California, shooting her in the face with a .22 caliber handgun after she pulled into her garage. She survived when the bullet ricocheted off the keys she held in her hands, and she lifted them to protect herself. Inside the house, her roommate, Dale Yoshi Okazaka, 34, heard gunshot and ducked behind the counter. When she saw Ramirez enter the kitchen, when she raised her head, he shot her once in the forehead, killing her. Within an hour of the Rosemead home invasion, Ramirez pulled 30-year-old Tasa Lyon Veronica Yu out of her car in Monterey Park, shot her twice with a 22 caliber handgun and fled. She was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. Now, one thing about Richard Ramirez, this dude loved using a 22. That was his weapon of choice. He said his weapon of choice during that time was because the gun was small and easy to hide whenever he wanted to do what he wanted to do. The two murders and attempted third in a single day attracted extensive coverage from news media, who dubbed the attacker, described as curly-haired with bulging eyes and wide-spaced rotting teeth, the walk-in killer and the valley intruder. And that's one thing you're going to hear in the course of this whole documentary. Like, Richard Ramirez had the worst teeth for you ever seen in a killer. That was going to be one of his key downfalls when it comes to his trial. His teeth were horrible. Like, he did not take care of his teeth. Also, you won't hear about Richard Ramirez is his hygiene absolutely was disgusting. Like, when I say he had bad hygiene, he had bad hygiene. A lot of people that knew this guy said that he did not keep himself clean properly. He did not try to take care of himself at all. Like, he just reeked. And because of that, that's how people were able to tell what he was doing and what he had going on. But hey, that's what happens when you're that type of person that's going through a lot of mental health issues. On March 17th, 1985, Ramirez entered the home that he had burglarized a year earlier, but outside of Whittier, California, at approximately 2 a.m. and killed the sleeping Vincent Charles Zazzara, age 64, with a gunshot to his head from a 22 caliber handgun. Zazzara's wife, Maxine Lavina Zazzara, age 44, was awakened by the gunshot, and Ramirez beat her and bound her hands while demanding to know where her valuables were. While he ransacked the room, Maxine escaped her bounds and retrieved a shotgun from under the bed, which was not loaded. The infuriated Ramirez shot her 3 times with the 22, then fetched a large carving knife from the kitchen. He mutilated her body by stabbing her several times, then gouged her eyes out and placed them in a jury box, which he left with. The autopsy. That's crazy, y'all. The autopsy determined that the mutilations were post-mortem. Now, Vincent and Maxine bodies were discovered by their son, Peter. Now, Ramirez left footprints from a pair of Avia sneakers in the flower beds, which the police photographed and cast. This was virtually the only evidence that the police had at the time. Bullets found at the scene was matched to those found at previous attacks, and the police determined that a serial killer was at large. So this is real talk. This is what this guy do. And the footprints was his signature. He always leave footprints in a flower bed or in the dirt. That was his thing. And he always did it with Avia shoes. On March 14th, 1985, Ramirez returned to Monterey Park and entered the home of Bill Dewey, age 66, and his disabled wife, Lillian, age 56. Surprising Dewey in his bedroom, Ramirez shot him in the face with a 22 semi-automatic pistol as Dewey went for his own handgun and beat the mortally wounded man into unconsciousness. Ramirez entered Lillian's bedroom, bound her with thumb cuffs, then raped her after he had ransacked the house for valuables. Bill Dewey died of his injuries while in the hospital. On the night of May 29, 1985, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Monterey and stopped at the house of Mabel Marbell, who is age 83, and her disabled sister Florence Nettie Lane, age 81. Finding a hammer in the kitchen, he bludgeoned and bound Lane in her bedroom, and then bound and bludgeoned Bell upon using electrical cord to shock the woman. After raping Lane, he used Bell's lipstick to draw the satanic pentagram symbol on her thigh, as well on the walls of both bedrooms. The women were found 2 days later, alive but comatose. Bell later died of her injuries. What's up, Q? Donnie, I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. One second here, guys. All right. All right. The next day, Ramirez drove the same car to Burbank and sneaked into the house of Carol Cal, age 42. At gunpoint, he bound uh, Cal and her 11-year-old son with handcuffs, then ransacked the house. He released Cal to direct him to where the family values were. He then raped her repeatedly. Ramirez also repeatedly ordered her not to look at him, telling her at one point that he would cut her eyes out. He fled the scene after retrieving the child from the closet and binding the two together with handcuffs. On the night of July 2nd, 1985, he drove a stolen car to Arcadia and randomly selected the house of Mary Louise Cannon, a 75-year-old widowed grandmother. Mm, 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 mm. After quietly entering the Cannon's home, he found her asleep in her bedroom. He bludgeoned her into unconsciousness with a lamp and then repeatedly stabbed her using a 10-inch butcher knife from the kitchen. She was found dead at the scene. On July 5th, 1985, Ramirez broke into a home in Sierra Madre and bludgeoned a 16-year-old Whitney Bennett with a tire iron as she slept in her bedroom. After searching in vain for a knife in the kitchen, Ramirez attempted to strangle the girl with a telephone cord. He stated that he was startled to see electrical sparks emanate from the cord, and when the victim began to breathe, he fled the house, believing that Jesus Christ had intervened and saved her. Bennett survived the savage beating, although 478 stitches were required to close the lacerations to her scalp. Wow. On July 7th, 1985, Ramirez burglarized the home of Joyce Lucille Nelson, age 61, in Monterey Park. Finding her asleep on her living room couch, he beat her to death by using his fist and kicking her in the head. A shoe print from his Avius sneakers was left imprinted on her face. After after cruising two other neighborhoods, he returned to Monterey Park and chose the home of Sophie Dickman, age 63. Ramirez assaulted and handcuffed it and stole her jewelry when she swore to him that he had taken everything of value. He told her to swear to. Jesus, man, that's crazy. On July the 20th, 1985, Ramirez purchased a machete before driving a stolen Toyota to Glendale, California. He chose the home of Leela Needing, age 66, and her husband, Maxon, age 68. He burst into the sleeping couple's bedroom and hacked them with a machete, then killed them with shots to the head from a 22 caliber handgun. He further mutilated their bodies with the machete before robbing the house of values. After quickly fencing the stolen items from the needing residents, Ramirez drove to Sun Valley. Now, approximately 4:15 a.m., he broke into the home of Kovovaneth family. He shot the sleeping uh, Sharonov, I don't want to mess up this name, but Konovac in the head with a 25 caliber handgun, killing him instantly. Then repeatedly raping and beating uh, Smoke Smoker Kononovic. I can't pronounce the names. He bound the couple's terrified 8-year-old son before dragging some kid around the house to reveal the location of valuable items, which he stole. During his assault, he demanded that she swear to Satan that she was not hiding any money from him. On August the 6th, 1985, Ramirez drove the North Ridge and broke into a home of Chris and Virginia Peterson. He crept into the bedroom, started Virginia, age 27, and shot her in the face with a 25 caliber semi-automatic handgun. He then shot Chris in the neck and attempted to flee. Chris fought back when avoiding being hit by more shots during the struggle before Ramirez managed to escape. The couple survived their injuries. On August the 8th, 1985, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Diamond Bar, California, and chose the home of Sakina Aberwith, age 27, and her husband, Elias Aberwith, age 31. Sometime after 2:30 a.m., he entered the house and went into the master bedroom. He instantly killed the sleeping Elias with a shot to the head from a 25 caliber handgun. He handcuffed and beat Sakina while forcing her to reveal the locations of the family jewelry, and then brutally raped her. He repeatedly demanded that she swear on Satan that she would not scream during these assaults. I'll tell you, this dude was crazy about these, was obsessed with this satanic stuff. When the couple's 3-year-old son entered the bedroom, Ramirez tied the child up and then continued to rape Sakina. Untied the son and sent him to the neighbors for help. Ramirez, who has been following the media coverage of his crimes, left Los Angeles and headed to San Francisco. How nice of him. On August the 18th, 1985, he entered the home of Peter and Barbara Pan. He shot the sleeping Peter, age 66, in the temple with a 25 caliber handgun. He then beat and sexually assaulted Barbara, age 62, before shooting her in the head and leaving her for dead. As the crime scene, Ramirez used lipstick to scrawl a pentagram and the phrase the knife on Jack the knife on the bedroom wall. When it was discovered that the ballistics and shoe print evidence from the Los Angeles crime scene matched the Pan crime scene, San Francisco then Mayor Deanne Feinstein divulged the information in a televised press conference. This leak infuriated the detectives in the case, as they knew the killer would be following media coverage, which gave him opportunity to destroy crucial forensic evidence. Ramirez, who had indeed been watching the press, dropped his size 11 and a half aviator shoes over the side of the Golden State Bridge that night. He remained in the area for a few more days before heading back to the Los Angeles area. On August 24th, 1985, Ramirez traveled 76 miles south of Los Angeles in a stolen orange Toyota to Mission Vale. That night, he had arrived at the home of James Romero Jr., who had just returned from a family vacation to Rosario Beach in Mexico. Romero's son, 13-year-old James Romero III, happened to be awake and heard Ramirez, excuse me, heard him Ramirez footsteps outside the house. Thinking there was a prowler, James went to wake his parents, and Ramirez fled the scene. James raced outside and noticed the color, make, and style of the car, as well as a particular license plate number. Ramirez contacted the police with this information, believing James had chased away a thief. After this encounter, Ramirez broke into the house of Bill Carnes, age 30, and his fiancee, Inez Erkison, age 29, through a back door. Ramirez entered the sleeping couple's bedroom and awakened Carnes when he cocked his 25 caliber handgun. He shot Carnes 3 times in the head before turning his attention to Erickson. Ramirez told the terrified woman that he was a night stalker and forced her to swear she loved Satan as he beat her with his fists and bound her with neckties from the closet. After stealing what he could find, Ramirez dragged Erickson to another room before raping her. He then demanded cash and more jewelry and made her swear on Satan that there was no more. Before leaving the home, Ramirez told Erickson, "Tell them the Night Stalker was here." Erickson untied herself from for her severely injured fiance. Surgeon removed 2 of the bullets from his head, and he survived his injuries. Erickson gave a detailed description of the assailant to investigators, and police obtained a cast of Ramirez's footprint from the Romero homes. The stolen car was found abandoned on August 28th in Wilshire Center, Los Angeles. Police obtained a single fingerprint from the rearview mirror. Despite Ramirez's careful efforts to wipe the car clean of his prints, the print was positively identified as belonging to Ramirez, who was described as a 25-year-old drifter from Texas with a long rap sheet that included many arrests, traffic, and illegal drug violations. Law enforcement officially decided to release a mugshot of Ramirez from a December 12, 1984 arrest for auto theft to the media, and the Night Stalker finally had a face. At the police press conference, it was announced, "We know who you are now, and soon everyone else will. There will be no place you can hide." Now, on the night of June 27th, 1985, 32-year-old Patty Elaine Higgins was murdered in her Arcadia home. The crime was not discovered until July the 2nd, where she did not show up for work. Her attacker had sodomized her, strangled her, and slashed her throat. Now, Ramirez was charged with murder and burglary in relations to Higgins' murder. However, the charges against him in that case were eventually dropped due to lack of concrete physical evidence linking Higgins' murder to the Night Stalker crimes. Now, the part that everybody want to hear, how he got caught up. On August 30th, 1985, Ramirez took a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother. He was unaware that he became a lead story in virtually every major newspaper and television news program across California. After failing to meet his brother, I need that light. What are you doing?
You gotta have it for the show,
I'm
man.
trying to put it back.
Keep it going.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what in the world is going on. That was my son being crazy.
Anyway, you took a treat.
After failing to meet his brother, he returned to Los Angeles early on the morning of August 31st. He walked past the police officers who were staking out the bus terminal in hopes of catching the killer should attempt to flee on an outbound bus and into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. After noticing a group of elderly Mexican women fearfully identifying him as El Matador, the killer, Ramirez saw his face on the front pages of the newspaper rack and fled the store in a panic. After, okay, Yeah, after running across the Santa Ana freeway, he attempted to carjack a woman, but was chased away by bystanders who pursued him, and after hopping over several fences and attempting two more carjackings, he was eventually subdued by a group of residents, one of whom had struck him in the head with the metal bar in the pursuit. Now, the group that held Ramirez down and recognized him is because of the women saying that it's him, it's him. And when they saw that it was him, the guys was like, yo, that is that guy. You know, this is the actual Night Stalker. This is the guy that they've been talking about all over the newspaper. We are not going to let him get away. So the whole neighborhood just came and held this dude down, hitting him. When the police got there, they were still beating his ass. That's how real it got. Now, they roughed him up a little bit, but not too much. Now, then there was the trial. During the trial, he did his antics. Everybody know he was famous of showing the pentagram uh, and everything, pentagram on his hand, uh, out here being loud, doing procedures, screaming out. He did it all. So there was all kinds of stuff that went on. But on September the 20th, 1989, Ramirez was convicted of all charges. Okay, 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, 14 burglaries. During the penalty phase of the trial of November 7th, 1989, he was sentenced to die in California's gas chamber. Now, he said something to a reporter when they asked him how he felt about his sentence and his death penalty. And this was this cat's famous words. And he said the following to this reporter: big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland. I tell you right there, this cat did not have an ounce of sorrow for any of the murders that he did. Now, the trial cost $1.8 million, which in today's money, which would be about $4 million, which at the same time made it the most expensive in the history of California until it was surpassed by the O.J. Simpson murder trial. Now, during this time that I didn't want to hit upon about Richard Ramirez is while he was on trial, this guy had a lot of women in behind him. I'm about to talk about it in a minute. Let me shut my door. Hold on. When I said that there was a lot of women in behind him, women were obsessed with this guy. I'm talking about they were like basically in love with this dude. They thought that he was the next best thing. So when you got people that, when you got somebody that's like that, it's weird. It's kind of like what we're looking at and facing right now with the Chris Watts situation. Chris Watts got women like going swooning crazy. Like he's got women actually talking about they want to date him. Well, that's what was going on with Richard Ramirez even back then, which that ain't nothing new. I mean, we've been talking about serial killers have had women when they get locked up swoon over them. This has been going on since Jesus back in the 1920s and the 30s. I mean, we've already seen that. Now, there was this one woman in 1985 that was crazy about him, Doreen Lloyd. Now, she wrote him 75 letters during his incarceration, and she started in 1985. In 1988, Ramirez proposed to Lloyd, and on October 3rd, 1996, they were married in California San Quentin prison. For many years before Ramirez's death, Lloyd stated that she would commit suicide when Ramirez was executed. However, Lloyd left Ramirez in 2009 after DNA confirmed he had raped and murdered a 9-year-old Maylene. By the time of his death in 2013, Ramirez was engaged to Christine Lee, a 23-year-old writer. You know, I never could get why women fall for these guys that you know commit these heinous crimes. Like, why do you want to be with this person? They're you can't fix them. There's no help for them. They're a disturbed being, and they're in a cell for the rest of their life. What are you gonna get out of this relationship? They're not gonna give you no Congo's visits with this person. That's how dangerous they are. You're not gonna get a Congo visit. You're probably gonna get maybe a wedding ceremony. They put their arms around y'all. You're married, and that's it. You may get a peck on the cheek from him one time only. That's stupid. I wouldn't. That is the dumbest. Look, if your self-esteem is that screwed up, you need a therapist. I'm gonna say it again. If your self-esteem is that fucked up to where you got to rely on and fall in love with a murderer slash serial killer, then yes, you need therapy. Lots of it. Now, his appeals on August 7, 2006, Ramirez's first round of state appeals ended unsuccessfully when the California State Supreme Court upheld his convictions and death sentence. On September 7, 2006, the California Supreme Court denied a request for a rehearing. Ramirez had appeals pending until the time of his demise, which I'll be getting to shortly. When it came to his mental health, a psychiatrist, Michael H. Stone, describes Ramirez as made psychopath as opposed to a born psychopath. He said that Ramirez's schizoid personality disorder contributed to his indifference to the suffering of his victims and his untreatability. Stone also stated that Ramirez was knocked unconscious and almost died on multiple occasions before he was 6 years old. As a result, later developed temporal lobe epilepsy, aggressivity, and hypersexuality. So basically what he's saying is the abuse he experienced as a kid from his mean ass father is what contribute for him to become the man that started hurting and destroying and stalking and killing people at the rate that he did. Now, Ramirez died of complications to B-cell lymphoma at the Marion General Hospital in Green Bay, California on June 7th, 2013. He also been affected by chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infection. At 53 years old, he had been on death row for more than 23 years. By some estimates, he would have been in his early 70s before his execution was carried out due to California's lethal appeals process. Like I said, this guy, Ramirez, was a very disturbed individual. And this is why today everybody tells a lot of parents and even a lot of grandparents that mental health is important to a child, because if he would have got the proper mental health and he would have had the proper guidance from the right people, Richard Ramirez might have not as been as fucked up as he was. But unfortunately, a lot of people failed Richard Ramirez. The first person that failed him was his dad, because his dad used his anger and temper to use this young man as a punching bag, to the point to where this young man had no one to guide him and to properly look out for his well-being. Second person that failed him was his uh, male figures that did came in his life. His cousin, especially, which his cousin already had his own issues, because we all seen that in Vietnam, when people were coming back from Vietnam, mental health was running rampant. So imagine being in Vietnam and you got people that you know of back in that time coming back from Vietnam and having all these vices, and you don't know how to control it. And the next person that failed him was his own brother-in-law, because his brother-in-law, instead of having the chance to kind of head off this kid from going to, to the wrong path and being a very screwed up individual, he went on ahead and showed this child how the art of what it's like to be a peeping Tom and to possibly be the most sadistic serial killer slash rapist in American history. So again, this is a sad, sad, sad case on so many levels. And it's also a scary case in so many levels. It also teaches you to keep your doors locked and to keep your gun cocked, just in case you got to protect yourself when it comes to outside forces, because your family life and everybody else's life is the most important. Again, I don't promote violence, but I do promote the Second Amendment right to protect yourself at all costs when it comes to situations like this, because people like Richard Ramirez are still out here and they are still scary. And that's all I got for you guys. If you like this, go on and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell up top. I will be on my other channel around 4 o'clock with an interview with a very powerful brother in the entertainment game, who's also a black conservative like myself. And definitely check that out on my Joel Davis Media Network channel, and see us sit back, relax on Corab, and just talk about how he got started and how he has uh, evolved from a how he got influenced to be a black conservative. All right, guys, thank y'all for your time. Take care of yourself and each other.